Hey everyone, I'm Abby with Spiceworks, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Spiceworks Partner Webinar, Making Your Active Directory Life Easy, brought to you by Netwrix. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that the webinar will be recorded, so if you have to step away for any reason, you'll get an email with a link to the video in about a week. Also, we want your questions, so be sure to log those into the question box during the presentation, and our presenter will try to get to as many as possible at the end. So now that we have all the housekeeping done, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Nick Cavalancia, who is the VP of Marketing, and we also have Jeff Melnick, who is the Senior Sales Engineer. So guys, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate it. So everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Appreciate you Spiceheads taking time out of your day to talk with us today. I'm joined by Jeff Melnick, Abby mentioned, our Senior Sales Engineer. Jeff, welcome to the webinar. Glad you're here today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Nick. I appreciate it. It should be a good time today, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So what we wanted to do today was to kind of talk about some problems that you have in Active Directory. And as being part of the community in Spiceworks, we thought what we want to do is we want to make sure that you knew about some free tools that are available to you, as well as some paid solutions that we have. But make sure that at the end of the day you can walk away from this webinar not feeling like you were just sold something, but you actually could get something for free, because I know that a lot of times, I remember in many of my years working in IT, if I could find a very cool tool that would do something for me that I didn't have to pay for, I was fairly happy. And so today's agenda is relatively simple. We're going to talk about 4 basic problems: password changes, changes in Active Directory, inactive users, and kind of some problems therein, and then privileged accounts and some problems therein, and then basically take kind of a 2-step approach. What's free? What can you do for free? And then what's not free? In essence, what do we have to offer? Because, of course, somehow we've got to make money and keep the lights on here at Netwrix. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're going to definitely be showing you a bunch of stuff that's free. There will be short URL links throughout the entire presentation for any of the solutions, both free and paid, that we mention. And then if for some reason you miss one, at the very end, I'm going to give you a page with all of them, so you can do a quick print screen or something, and you have all of them at your fingertips, and that way you're not going through our website trying to find them again, that sort of thing. So before we get started in kind of covering these, let me go ahead and put a poll up real quick. And the question basically here is, just so Jeff and I can get a sense of our audience, which of these Active Directory pains or concerns for you? So you see the 4 of them that are up there. They're just the 4 topics that we're talking about. Jeff, while everyone's kind of answering, go ahead and, by the way, pick any that apply to you, one or all of them or anywhere in between. Jeff, what do you think is going to be the primary one, just based on all the customers that you talk to every day?
It's probably going to be one of the top 2, to be honest with you. Password changes is just a huge amount of time. Probably 30% of help desk calls are associated with password changes. But especially if you're dealing with compliance, AD changes are pretty critical. Unfortunately, everything pretty much runs on AD nowadays. So if AD is not working, then that's a problem.
Yeah, that would definitely be it. So we'll wait another 5 or 10 seconds or so, make sure everyone has a chance to go ahead and select those. And then we'll go ahead and share the poll results so you can see where you kind of stand with your peers. So I will go ahead and show the poll results. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to go ahead and answer. And let's see, here we go. So interestingly enough, you were kind of right, Jeff, but kind of wrong at the same time, because the numbers here are they're within a margin of 10 points-ish, where you've got password changes certainly isn't all the way at the top. In fact, it's last, but it's not so far behind, is it? AD changes is the big one, password changes, inactive users, and privileged accounts. I'm glad to see that there's a lot of pain here. Jeff, does this surprise any of you?
I'm a little surprised about inactive users being so high. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a huge nightmare, again, especially when we're dealing with compliance and needing to knock a lot of those down. But a lot of people kind of ignore that to a certain degree. Maybe it's just because they don't have a good tool to really tackle it in a decent manner.
And that's the reason why I'm glad that we're seeing so much pain here, because Spiceheads, we have free tools we want to give you that are going to take care of each one of these to some degree. Yes, we have paid stuff. We'd love to sell it to you because, we'd like to put food on the table, but the reality is not everybody has money right now, not everybody has budget, not everybody has projects. So even in lieu of or putting aside the paid stuff we have free stuff to fix all of these problems and help you out with that. So let's jump into the first topic here, which is password changes. So and kind of talk about the problem. Jeff, I think you even kind of really mentioned it just a little bit there. You mentioned the percentage of help desk calls. I saw various ranges. You're quoting 30. I've seen 20 to 50. In fact, I've seen one person actually say 80% of all help desk calls are password changes. Where you go, no, it's not. No. But it's somewhere in there, right? I think everyone can agree it's somewhere in there. You and I were both in IT. What's been your experience as far as, I don't want to say stupid users because I think that's kind of rude, but, users that forget their passwords. Why do you think it's such a prevalent problem?
Well, it's rough because I've always wanted to do this. I never have, as far as throwing it out on like a weekly bar graph, because Mondays are always brutal because things burst into flames over the weekend anyway, and so you're always running around, and then everyone seems to basically forget everything that they've ever known when it comes Monday morning. They can't remember their password. They don't know what their especially if they change it on Friday or they came back from vacation. It's just an absolute nightmare. And then again, you just have people who just aren't paying attention. They leave caps lock on, even though it says, hey, caps lock is on. They just keep punching in their incorrect password.
And I laugh sometimes because I have to think as being a former IT guy, I know that we think about, like, how many passwords do I have memorized off the top of my head? It's dozens. So do you. So do our audience. They know lots and lots of passwords that are just very complex. And yet I'll go to someone who's non-technical in my family. Like, I'll just sort of pick on my wife as just a point of reference. She's not technical at all. And she can barely remember the password to her email, and I think that's sometimes hard for us to understand. Why don't these people just remember? Don't write it down. That's insecure. But why can't you remember your password? And it's a realistic problem. There's another source here, being Forrester, coining calls being around $25 a help desk call. I'm not really stuck on the number. I don't know, Jeff, if you've got any opinion on the number. I'm just more stuck on the fact that there is a cost associated with every call, but have you heard a different stat at all, or is that around the number you've always heard, or what?
Not really. I know we have an ROI calculator on our website, actually, but, one of the things that's interesting is when you look at that, not only is it a cost from the help desk perspective, that where you can be doing other things and, more useful projects that, you don't normally seem to have time for, but also if you've got, 24-hour users and you don't have a 24-hour help desk, it's the amount of time spent where the user cannot get into the network, and they're just kind of hanging out, trying to get a hold of somebody, and that can be a real nightmare as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So, the productivity loss is going to be huge. And I love the fact you're talking about 24 hours because you don't always have the help desk available, or certainly not as many people staffed, which, by the way, on a side note, I just love when you call like a tech support line and they say, due to unusually high call volume, and we all know that's like, because we didn't staff enough people today. And they're just like, it's not my fault, it's your fault. So it kind of makes me laugh. But let's really quickly, before we jump into the tools, let's talk about really quickly for the audience, if you guys would answer this question, just select the one answer here. How are you managing passwords today? And you see the three answers there. Help desk performs the resets. We've kind of touched on that a little bit here. Some people might have a self-service third-party solution. I'm going to guess that most of you don't. It's my guess, because you wouldn't be on the call unless there's another one of our problems you really are here for. Or maybe just, I have it here as they call me. What I mean by that is, like, you're the person. You're the guy. You're the gal. You're the one that does it. And so they just call you and go, hey, I need my password reset. And that's how complex your system is. So, Jeff, do you have a different take? Where do you think the numbers are going to lie while our audience is still putting in their selection?
I got a feeling it'll probably be the bottom one, to be honest with you, but we'll see. Based on the fact that only half of them thought this was an issue, they may already have a solution, or maybe it's someone else's problem. So.
Okay. All right. So let's take a peek and let's see what the answers come back at. And sure enough, you're right. So now you're 1 for 2. So most of you, they just call you, and that's a pain. We don't want that. We want to try and help you with that. A very small percentage of you, basically marginal, don't even have anything at all. And so, help desk performs reset. So that actually makes sense. I'm glad to see some of you have a help desk that does some of that stuff. So let's take a look at what we have for free. So what's free? The free solution we have is Password Manager. Completely free solution, URL there on the bottom. To kind of sum it up, and then, Jeff, I'll even let you, obviously you should probably elaborate a bit more because you're far more familiar with these. You have far more time here at Netwrix than I do. But in essence, we have a way of integrating with, at logon, whether it's the old Gina or if it's Windows 8, that kind of thing, and then providing password reset by basically identifying yourself through a series of questions. There's also a web form that can be used as well. So it's a very rich free tool. This is not like a little tiny tool that resets passwords. This is a password manager, a full management solution for managing passwords to do automated resets. So we have that for free. The what's paid is, interestingly enough, if I come over here, before I do that, I'll talk about what's paid. I'll come over with one other solution here, which is password expiration alerting. This is just so for full disclosure, it's part of our Netwrix Auditor product, but there is a free version of Netwrix Auditor as well, so that you can still get it for free, where you can be notified via an email with a very simple way of knowing that passwords are going to expire. So it's not just users forgetting their password, but it's also passwords that are about to expire, maybe their service accounts or something or other. You can be notified about those things. And that way you have kind of a leg up on the game. Jeff, any commentary on the free tools about what we offer there and how robust they are, experience you've had with customers, anything along those lines that the Spice Heads might find useful?
Yeah, the Password Manager is a pretty powerful tool. As you mentioned, it's pretty much the full-blown version. The free version is only limited by the number of users you can use. I think it's a 50-user license, but it's got some neat features beyond what you mentioned as far as the web portal and the front-end client, which I think I'll show a little bit later. Also has the capability for you to determine, if someone calls, and unfortunately you're always going to deal with someone who has to call you. And in larger organizations or where you just simply don't know everyone, there's a handy mechanism for identity validation, so you can determine with some degree of accuracy who you're speaking with. Obviously the easiest way to get into your network is just to call up your help desk and have them give you, a password to get into the network, and that's a real critical issue for a lot of people. This has kind of a handy built-in tool where you can, with some degree of accuracy, determine who you're actually speaking with, so to try to cut down on that type of issue.
Yeah, so you actually are kind of touching on even the next slide, which is there we go, the what's paid. And basically the what's paid slide is you have Netwrix Password Manager, same product we just showed you. You mentioned the only limitation really in the free version is the number of users, which is 300. And then you have the password expiration alerting, part of Netwrix Auditor. Any difference there in terms of the paid solution for what it provides for password expiration alerting?
Yeah, for the expiration alerting, the free version just sends out a pretty generic, hey, you need to change your password. It doesn't really have as many configurable options. The paid version allows you to go through, and it's got a pretty basic HTML interface. And you can go in, you can customize it, it can say whatever you want. You can put in very explicit instructions if you want. If you're using something like Password Manager, you could embed a link into the email as well. So you can actually do quite a bit with the commercial version over just saying, hey, you need to reset your password. Either way, though, it's kind of handy, especially for VPN users, etc.
Okay, and can you show us either of these now?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me switch over here and let me try the old screen share here. And it's giving one of those days, I see.
Would you like me to hum the Jeopardy theme while we wait? Would that help?
It's just not switching over. It really is going to be one of those days. Oh, I know. I'm doing the wrong thing here. My apologies. There we go. That's probably much better. So this is the Password Manager product, which I'll show you very quickly. As Nick mentioned, it's got a couple different features. Obviously, I can go in, I can reset my password, I can unlock my account, and it's just a matter of going in here, putting in my username, clicking Next, putting in the question-answer pairs, and once it validates everything, it'll go through, unlock, and reset my account. Pretty easy to use. Very easy to use this through a web portal, any web-enabled device. You can customize this portal as well. You can put your own logo up here, obviously, and some other features. We support a whole slew of different languages if you've got some employees or offices where English is not the first language. And again, we're talking about what happens when you come in. If I'm the first one in the office in the morning and I can't get a hold of anybody, I might be stuck here at the login screen. And so this also has a client that you can install. It's only about 3.5 meg. It's pretty small. And you can push it out, and then you can basically kind of go through the same mechanism, but right through this login screen, which is pretty handy. So you don't have to worry about, going through and, if I can't get to the web for whatever reason, then that's a problem. So here really helps you out in that particular mechanism. Also, the other thing I'll show you very quickly is this is the help desk portal. And again, this really allows your users or your administrators to determine with some degree of accuracy who they're speaking with. So if Paul Smith calls me up and he's my CFO, but I've never met the guy, and he says, hey, I'm at a conference and you really need to set my password right now. If I got to reset the password, it'll actually bring up the question and answer pairs that he's enrolled with. And, we only unencrypt the first and last characters, so you can't just go in and write them all down. But it allows me to go through and say, hey, just as a quick identity validation, what was the name of your first school? I need the first and last character only. And if he says, hey, starts with a W, ends with an N, no problem. And if he says, hey, let me check this guy's Facebook status, that's not going to work. So, again, gives you kind of a handy mechanism to be able to go through and determine who you're speaking with. Because unfortunately, users are always going to call. That's just how it is, unfortunately. With password expiration notifier, I'll show you very quickly as well. Again, allows you to send out these password expiration notices. And again, you can completely customize these. It's all basic HTML. And you can send these out via email. You can actually send out text messages. You can also notify users if their account is going to expire. So if you've got temporary employees, for example, and, I used to have a lot of problems with temporary employees, not with the employees themselves, but with their managers, They'd always come in and say, hey, didn't they tell you they extended my employment? Of course they didn't. So I'd have to go through, and of course, 9 times out of 10, that manager wasn't available. So this is very easy, very customizable. The paid version allows you to actually deploy this not only at the domain level, but also at the OU level. So I can actually have different groups and templates and groups of instructions for different organizational units, which is pretty cool. So
very powerful. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to turn it back over to you. That was my super quick version. There's also a number of different ways to enroll. You can obviously enroll through the web portal, and the client can help you enroll. You can even do bulk enrollments as well, where you could just drop everybody into a CSV and pull them in automatically. So you basically take the users out of the equation.
And the nice thing here again is the only real difference between paid and free is on Password Manager is 300 user limitation. So what we're showing you on the Password Manager side, Spice said, take it. We're happy to have you use it. That's what we want it for. That's why we're here. We've gotten a lot out of you guys. You guys have gotten a lot from us. It's a good relationship builder, so we're happy to do it. So let's jump back then in and take a look at the slides, and let's talk about the next topic, which is changes in Active Directory. You guys should be seeing a slide that says changes in Active Directory. And so, the problem here with, of course, Active Directory is you have many, many hands in the soup, a lot of you. And so it's very tough to keep track of what it is that anybody is doing. I remember one time sitting with a customer. I was trying to sell them a product, and a very small, tight-knit IT group, 4 guys that all know each other very well, go to lunch together, they go out on weekends together. I mean, they know each other, right, for many years. And I was doing a demonstration of, this again was like 6-7 years ago, of a product that did kind of auditing of Active Directory changes and so on. And I'm showing him this sort of proof of concept. And he looks at his screen and looks over at his buddy, this guy that works next to him every day. He's like, why did you add so-and-so to the VPN users group? And so basically during like my demo, this guy kind of got busted for making a change that no one else knew about. And my point is just that the changes are going to happen, and people are going to forget to document it, forget to tell someone. You probably don't have any change management in play where you're documenting everything that goes on. And there's no way to tell, in most cases, what something was like before with Active Directory. So it becomes kind of a challenge here. There's not enough detail when you're looking at the changes as well. You have some before and after values of like 2003 and 2008 or 2, that sort of thing. And probably the biggest thing with changes in AD is if you're going to go and figure out what was changed, first off, it's not timely. You're probably finding out about a change because of the repercussions of the change, not because the change itself was made, unless maybe you have some event log management running in play and you see an event come up or something and get an alert. And so, that kind of becomes, really kind of part of the problem there. And then, of course, all these changes are going to cause you to probably not meet your compliance objectives because of the fact that you really have no control over, give you a perfect example. You could show an auditor that just stick with domain admins group as an example, but it could be any group that has access to some kind of sensitive information. You can show them the current state of that group, but you couldn't actually prove that last week someone didn't add someone in, access something, and then remove them afterwards. It'd be very tough to do that. It was just by showing them the current state. So it's really hard to meet compliance objectives. I mean, Jeff, other kind of horror stories that kind of tie in with the problem with monitoring changes in Active Directory?
Ooh, yeah. I guess they're almost too numerous to list. I mean, the number of things I've seen where people are added to groups and then removed from groups, where you have access to something one day and suddenly you don't have access to it, or someone decides to go through and clean up an administrative account or administrative group, and they strip all your service accounts of access, and now things just start breaking and no one knows why. Obviously, for compliance, it's just huge now. I mean, if you're unfortunate enough to have to deal with compliance, then you desperately need to, be able to keep track of all this stuff, because the auditors are going to drill you. They get pretty rough, especially with administrative groups. So, yeah, it's an issue for sure.
Yeah, so let's do this. While we're kind of talking about this a little bit, let's do the poll here. Just asking you guys, how are you tracking your changes in Active Directory? So pick one. And I came up with the 4 that kind of made sense to me. You limit the number of admins, and so you're kind of trying to do the example like I painted the picture of. You have 2, 3, 4 people, and everybody knows what everyone's doing, you hope. Although I think that everyone would agree that's not exactly a way of tracking changes. Taking a look at the event logs, I put it as a periodic review because, of course, no one wants to look through thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of event logs. You might have, like I mentioned earlier, some kind of event log management solution that's doing alerting. And then I added this last one in that kind of seems like a joke. Wait, I can track it. Changes in AD, huh? You still see news articles on tech magazines and stuff about auditing an AD, and there's got to be somebody who's kind of new to this game. And so I want to put that in there. You can track all the changes in Active Directory. Jeff, what's your guess? What do you think is going to be the number 1 here?
That's a good question. I would say, I'm going to say probably maybe a combination of A and C. This is going to be a tough one.
I was going to pick the second one. I was going to pick B using your letters. So let's take a look and see what everybody says. And the survey says you limit the number of admins as your primary one. That's actually kind of surprising. Some people didn't actually, like I said, didn't know you could track changes in AD, or maybe you're taking that as the tongue-in-cheek way that I maybe presented it, and you're just saying you don't do it at all. And then you see event logs and event log management are very, very small. So I'm kind of, I guess you were closer than I was. I'm going to call you as 2 for 3 at this point, and I'm I guess 0 or something. So you're closer to the pulse than I am. So cool. So let's keep going. Let's talk about what's free and trying to look at changes in Active Directory. And you see a screenshot up here. This is Netwrix Auditor's Active Directory module. There's a URL again there at the bottom left. And you'll see here, it's got some basic ability to track changes. In essence, you're tracking the changes in Active Directory. At the bottom, you can specify a user account. There's a couple of options in between there. Jeff will probably go, oh, but wait, you got to cover this great one, and he'll pipe in with something really good, I'm sure, because he always does. And you'll notice the email there, kind of the contents I put there, where you're getting a report, and it's a pretty simple report, but at least now you're getting some visibility, and that's really what auditing changes is about: visibility into what's going on in your Active Directory. And so this is a very solid tool where at least you're not having to go and sort through event logs. We're filtering all that data for you, and then we're providing you at least a summary listing of what's been changed in Active Directory. Jeff, what did I miss about the free version? Anything?
I think the free version is really awesome for a lot of people who, I get a lot of feedback like, well, it's just me, or it's just me and this other guy. We don't really make a lot of changes. That's okay. So this at least gives you a heads up of the changes that have been made. So if you didn't make the change, then most likely it was somebody else. And you'd be surprised to see some of the changes that will occasionally roll up. As far as just what's going on out there, changing groups, etc. Like you said, it doesn't really matter how well you know someone. You never really know as far as what's going on. There's always some terrible things in that way.
2 in the morning, something happened. Yeah, no one knows. Yeah, we have a slogan we've been using on some T-shirts, and it's "I know what you did last night." And it's kind of true, because we know what you did last night. So in looking at what's paid, there's a completely different paid version of Netwrix Auditor. And unlike the free to paid in Password Manager, this is a completely different solution. So Jeff, I'm not even going to do it justice. So why don't you kind of give them the high level what it does, and maybe show them a little bit about what and what they can see with the full version of Netwrix Auditor for Active Directory?
Sure. What I'll do is I'll switch over. It basically will show just about all the changes within Active Directory, which is pretty handy. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. It does alerting. It does quite a few different kinds of reports. It does pretty generic reports, so I can kind of scroll down and see what's changed. Things are color-coded here. And a little bit different from what you'd get from just the logs, for example. We can see who made the change, what was changed, when, where, before and after values. Even attribute values. So whether it was just a simple office change or, down here in the domain admins group has been changed and these 2 test users were added to that group. So it gives you a lot of information. The reports can be drilled into from the console. You can export these out. There's a web browser as well. You can subscribe to them and have them delivered to you. A lot of different filters as well. So if I want to look at a specific object or a specific organizational unit, for example, I can drill into that. I'm always a big fan of wildcards to make my life easier. These are generic reports, and there's a whole bunch of other ones too, like groups. Obviously, again, being able to track who's been added or removed to things like the enterprise admins and domain admins groups are pretty critical. One of the things I never liked about Active Directory is, if I go in and I see, hey, what is this guy doing in the domain admins group? I can kind of go in and find out what's going on, but that's a pretty easy change to kind of stumble across. One of the things that's a little bit more difficult is security changes, delegation changes, and so there's kind of a cool one in here to see changes to object security. In this case, I went into this organizational unit as this user and added permissions for this admin password reset group, and basically added allow read password last set, etc. You don't see those types of changes unless you happen to look on the security tab of this object or this OU. So really, really very difficult. So a lot of different kinds of changes. They also have these state and time assessment reports, also known as snapshot reports. And you were talking earlier about, hey, who's in the admins group right now? It's one thing to see changes, but one of the other things, especially for compliance, is who is in there right now. And so I can kind of go through here again using admin with wildcards. It'll go through and it'll look at all of the groups with admin in the name or in the path. See who's disabled. Hey, this person should probably come out of here. So should these test users, etc. So kind of cool with that. Again, you can have these delivered to you. There's an alerting mechanism in here. There's a whole slew of different reports. Just for Active Directory Change Reporter alone, there are, I think, 90-something canned reports. You also talked about change management and change control. They added one recently for change review history. So the cool thing about this is this allows you to actually addend the database. So for example, if I go in here and I click, to update status, I can say it's in review or resolved, or then say, hey, per ticket whatever, this was changed. And it allows me to go through, and now I can see, hey, this was addended, again, if I have auditors, so I can use this as a change control mechanism. Same thing with group policy, for example. I've been burned many times by group policy. Someone goes in and makes a change. I had an issue one time where someone decided to unlink a policy, and 60% of the firewalls on all of our file servers snapped on. That was upsetting because one of them was at our corporate office, so that did not go over well. So again, a lot of destruction, a lot of havoc that can come through from Active Directory. Through delegation of properties, obviously group memberships, group policy is, again, a real big one. There's a reason that a lot of the big companies have entire, groups associated with just, trying to manage group policy. And these give you some really neat stuff as far as changes, as well as what's going on currently. And again, there's some alerting mechanisms in here as well. And there's also a rollback mechanism as well. So if I go in and I tear somebody out by mistake, I deleted John Smith, I meant to delete Jane Smith, I can restore that user, recreates it with the same security identifier, recreates it with the same group memberships, Active Directory attributes, Exchange attributes. So as long as the mailbox hasn't been purged, it automatically sticks that back on. But I can also just roll back changes to attributes as well. If I go in and I make a change to a bulk change to an OU by mistake, maybe I overwrite all the direct dials with a generic number, that's something I probably don't want to go back in and change every single one of them, especially if I did it for 50 or 100 users. So a lot of handy mechanisms here. We actually had a client about 2 months ago who really had a great use for the rollback wizard, which is included in the AD Change Reporter, by the way. And they had created a script. I think they were looking for inactive users, ironically, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but it wound up purging out 1,500 of their user accounts. So when they came in Monday morning, 1,500 people couldn't log in. Obviously, that did not go over well, but they were able to use this tool, restore all those users, and then it was kind of business as usual. So, instead of having to update the resume and be escorted off the property, they were able to get everything back up and running, and it was just kind of a minor outage at that point. So a lot of different stuff in here, and again, there's modules for group policy, et cetera. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can see some of the reports that you can really drill into as far as changes to domains and trusts. Obviously, OUs. If somebody deletes an organizational unit, I don't necessarily want to look through, hey, when was the last time I saw that? Maybe 6 months ago. I don't want to look through 6 months of generic data. Maybe I just go in and I just want to see just deleted OUs. And again, I can use wildcards. If I have any recollection of what I called this, I can come back with just, the one or two OUs that you may have deleted, or again, that one specific piece. So it gives you a great overview.
There's certainly a lot of power in there, and it's I can hear the passion in the way you're talking, and the fact that Jeff has been with Netwrix for many years, so he's actually calling it Auditor by its old name multiple times, Change Reporter. That's how excited you are, Jeff. You're making me laugh. Because every time you say it, I'm like, he's super excited. It just rolls off the tongue. It's like when you change companies and you keep calling your old company, your new company, your old company name. So I'm sitting here laughing.
I know old habits die hard, but.
Yeah, old habits die hard. So every time, guys, that he's said Change Reporter, he meant Auditor. He's the product he's showing. Don't get confused. There is a link at the bottom left. That's for an eval of the paid solution. Even though all these URLs look very similar, just because we ran them all at the same time and built them. But they're all different. So like Password Manager, there's one for the freeware version, and there's one for an eval of the paid version as well. So let's move on and talk about the next topic. If you can give me back control, and hopefully you guys will be able to see my screen now. With the problem of inactive users, right? So the problem kind of becomes inactive users. They're an obvious security risk. You have users that have left the company that may have administrative rights. They may just have access to information. There's always the issue of audit and compliance violations. I've read a couple stories of late where after people had left the organization, they still had access. Now, mind you, the full kind of disclosure, this wasn't an Active Directory account, but it makes the point. It was someone who was fired from HR but still had access to the HR portal, and then ended up deleting like anyone who was applying for her replacement job. So there's a security risk there. There's certainly some kinds of compliance violations that could be potentially there. Jeff, you've got some color to add around that. You've mentioned inactive users and compliance issues and whatnot, and they need to be cleaned up. So jump in there, please.
So I know at one time we had, they didn't bother to tell us that they were laying someone off, and so he went back to his office and typed out a 3-page email about what he thought of the company, sent it out to everyone in the organization, and included some other information about what could have been some potential OSHA violations and some things that the company may or may not have been made aware of. So that was a huge issue. I've even seen cases where we've gone through and we've found out, 5 months after the fact that, hey, this person was laid off, but no one bothered to tell IT. And so they had, like you said, full access to the network. And that never goes well.
No, it certainly doesn't. In fact, I've got to put this last bullet up here. Post-termination issues come up quite a bit. So let's ask the audience real quick. You guys, how are you dealing with inactive users? So I put up a couple things here. You got, of course, PowerShell and some scripts, and you can try and find them. In essence, I tried to go through the idea of how you're going to find out who's inactive, and then you can, of course, do something about the inactive users once you've found them out. So PowerShell and script, DS Query was, it's an old command line tool, but it still works. Jeff alluded to the fact that HR never tells IT, but perhaps you have a really good HR process, or just plain old, you're not managing inactive users, and I guess you delete them when you figure out that they're old and deleted, and you remember so-and-so's gone or something like that. So, Jeff, again, what's your guess? Let's see if you can become 4 for 3 or whatever it is at this point. What do you think is going to be the answer?
You know what? Man, it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to say the last one, the last option, but it could possibly be the first one, so I'll hedge my bet there.
Hedge your bet. It's probably one of the 4. I'm thinking. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Hedge my bet entirely. Good choice. All right, let's go ahead and close this off, and let's see what the results are. So it looks like most of you are using an HR process. I'd be interested to hear, even if you just want to pipe something into as a comment into the question box, is it working well? For those of you that actually said you're using the HR process, does it even work well for you, or that just happens to be your methodology? So very small number of people using scripts in DS Query, which basically leads me to believe for the most part people either are not managing them or they're hoping that HR is going to let them know when people are gone. So as a matter of fact, I'm seeing here, I get a couple, I got to say, a yeses, a no. I'm looking through some of the questions right now that I'm seeing, and it looks like there's, hit or miss. Works okay with full-time people. No, it doesn't work well. So, yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of everything for even the people that said HR. So let's jump in and take a look then at, let me go to the slide. There we go. At what's free. So what we have is a product called inactive user tracking. There's a URL for the free tool at the bottom left. And in essence, you can tell just by looking at the tool both what the free version gives you, because I think by looking at this as an IT pro, you already can tell. And you can also kind of tell because it's grayed out, it must mean that the paid version has those options. You can figure out what the full version is going to have. In essence, you just basically pick a domain, a number of days, an email address, and a little bit of SMTP data. And you're going to get a basic report that says anyone who's over 30 days inactive or whatever, you get a report every day. So pretty simple, basic filtering like that, simple email configuration, but it's certainly at least going to tell you who's inactive and who's not. The paid version is actually the very same named product, but it's part of the Netwrix Auditor platform. You can, again, get the URL for this. This would be an eval of Auditor to be able to try out this paid version, but you see where all of the options are available and gives you a lot more granularity. I know I'm missing a couple things, probably some stuff about OUs or something, Jeff, but what else is in the inactive user tracking in the full version that I've missed? Because I know I'm missing stuff.
So really it's the ability to not only let you know who's inactive, but also the capability to take action against those accounts. So you can send an email to the managers, just kind of a heads up, hey, does this person still work here, kind of an email. Have it set a random password. You can have it disable accounts, move them. You can even have it go so far as to delete accounts. One of the things I will mention, though, is as you mentioned, you can specify by OU. Some people are aware and some people are not that service accounts do not technically log in. So they authenticate against the directory, but they don't technically log in. So if you're going to download this product and try it out, I would certainly let it run without some of the actions first. If you've got the AD component running and you want to use the restore wizard to restore deleted accounts, we've had many clients do that and it works well. But to save you that sort of headache of doing that, I will give you a heads up and just a reminder that service accounts do not log on. So, and again, you can actually point this at different organizational units and configure it differently for different OUs. So if you have, say, a temporary employees OU, you might consider them to be inactive after, say, 5 days rather than, say, 20. Because, temporary employees are not normally known for taking long vacations. So you can definitely set up different options just like you can through the password alerting mechanism and set up different criteria for different organizational units, which is kind of handy. Beyond user accounts, it also helps you track down machine accounts. So very important in keeping the directory clean. I used to do a lot of AD migrations and integrations and spin-offs and stuff like that. And one of the companies we brought on, they had 700 users. We were bringing them on into our directory, but they had over 3,500 machine accounts because they just removed the machine from the network, threw it out, or in some cases they re-provisioned it with a new name and add it back into the directory. So they had all of these bogus accounts out there, and it was really difficult to figure out what was actually going on. So very easy for not only for keeping the directory clean, but again, a lot of compliance requirements now really want you to stay on top of inactive users for many of the reasons we've mentioned. So.
Cool. So since the screenshot here is pretty much the bulk of the product with the exception of the email that you might receive, we're going to go ahead and just continue on also for the sake of time to see if there's a lot of questions. So I want to make sure as we cover our home stretch here of privileged accounts, we still have time at the end to answer some questions because there are quite a bit of them that are coming in. So the next slide is on privileged accounts. That's the next problem that we have. And, of course, the problem with privileged accounts, Jeff's mentioned it a couple times, so have I, a lot of service accounts. You have admin accounts, people with admin rights, that kind of thing. If you add in lots of admins, that can equal a lot of trouble. That's basically a lot of accounts that have the ability to make changes in Active Directory. That can spell trouble for you. So you want to kind of have an ability to keep track of, well, who's got what rights, who's using these accounts, what are they being used for, that sort of thing. And I'll give you kind of an answer there in a second. There's, of course, the issue of when you need to make password changes to service accounts that come into play, or somebody changes the password rather on one service account or an admin account and doesn't tell anyone else. That becomes kind of a problem as well. Again, kind of lots of hands in the soup. And then, kind of lastly here is just like I mentioned, who's using the accounts in the first place, especially if it's more of a not a service account in terms of like you have it running just a Windows service, but some organizations will have an admin account that's used to go perform certain tasks, or even your own personal account is not an admin. You have to log in as a separate account. I mean, Jeff, any kind of horror stories you heard from customers along these lines?
I know I've had personally, I think everyone struggles with privileged accounts, service accounts, like having to have some sort of recollection as to what the 57 different passwords are, if you're lucky, 57. Also, one of the things that I know I personally was dinged on for compliance was when I used to do ERP and different installations, I'd set up the local administrative password, and it would be the same across different groups of servers. And they wanted us to have a different local admin password for every single box. And so at that point, you just have to write them all down and either keep them in Excel or put them on your keyboard or something else ridiculous. So because of compliance, it becomes more difficult in some cases. So
yeah, that makes good sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. So let's ask these guys here, Spiceheads, what are you doing to track your privileged accounts? Using a single domain account? Do you have a manual process, like you're keeping track of your accounts and your passwords in like an Excel spreadsheet or a Word doc or something? You'd let the head of IT know them all. That's supposed to say we would just reset them when we need to. Sorry, that was a typo on my part. Jeff, again, nail this one for us, please. Which one do you think they're going to say the most of?
I'm going to go with the manual process.
So do I. I think that's about right. I think that's probably it. So we'll give you guys another 5 or 10 seconds here. I haven't met anyone that's done one domain account. There always seems to be more than one necessary, especially when you're dealing with like service accounts. And every account, every system has their own needs and own permissions to specific boxes and that kind of thing. The head of IT doesn't sound too far off from me in that there are like password apps that exist. Like I have one that I keep for my own team that's on my laptop. But that's for marketing, that kind of thing. So I could see that being possible. But let's take a look and see what the responses are here. Sure enough, the biggest number is manual process. I'm surprised to see number 2 is using a single domain admin account. And then the other 2 kind of trailing off, head of IT knows them all, or you just reset them when you need to. So once again, Jeff, you're, 4 for 5 or 6 for 8, or I don't know what you 2 for 9. But you're out on the money, man. Good job. So the next one here is just let's talk about what's free. And what's free here is, first off, I want to just take kind of a tangent and talk about if you're doing anything with services, just real quick, since we're talking about service accounts. There's a free tool. There's a URL down there about monitoring multiple servers with Service Monitor. It restarts them, reboots the computer. It can send you an alert. This is basically if they stop, what do you want to do? So it's just a quick free tool. If you have service accounts, you want to monitor them, and you don't want to have to install a huge platform of some kind or event logs. Or this just becomes very easy. It's monitoring the services, their started state for anything that's supposed to boot up automatically, that kind of thing. And then back to kind of the topic of actually managing the privileged accounts. The issue of like passwords, we have Privileged Account Manager, and this is a full version. There is no paid version of this solution. This used to be a paid solution. We just made it free, and it's completely free. It's a full version. This basically allows you to keep track of your passwords, and then also, in essence, have individual IT members check out accounts and check them back in, so that you can document who is using it at a particular time. And then when they're done using it and so on. So that URL at the bottom, even though it's a full version, that's just free. There's no eval or anything like that. If I remember correctly, you get a serial number on our website, which is the same serial number everybody gets for this. Jeff, did I miss any kind of basic features of Privileged Account Manager?
That's it. I mean, like I said, I think it works really very well with local administrative accounts because for the most part you don't care about them, you don't use them anyway. They're just kind of a liability. And so what happens is when you check out accounts and then you can use them, it'll show you what the password is. And then when you check it back in by default, it'll randomize that account, and then it basically keeps track of it. So it's pretty handy. It works also great for service accounts, and then you basically specify what machines you want to have it grab or be associated with, so that when it updates the Active Directory account, it also updates those credentials on those machines so they don't get out of sync. Pretty handy in that feature. There's some pretty cool things in there, but for a free tool, honestly, it's a really neat tool. I've always liked this tool, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the paid solution really isn't taking either of these and upgrading them to a paid version. Really the issue here is because if you like that kind of concept of checking out an account so that you know who's using it, it probably means you want to do that because you want to be able to know what it is that they're doing and whether I trust them or not, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to, at kind of a high level, expand the context here. Jeff already showed you Netwrix Auditor, showed you a little bit around the Active Directory aspects of it, the group policy aspects of it. It's one platform that's auditing many, many systems. You can see them on the left-hand side listed. Active Directory being kind of the foundational system that everything else builds off of. And you see what we're doing is we're taking data from those systems. We're also monitoring the systems themselves in many cases, like Active Directory. Jeff mentioned the snapshots, where we're watching the actual system and its data, and then what we'll do is we'll actually look at what the system looked like before the change and after the change in order to tell you what the change was. A good example would be like group policies that Jeff touched on. When you see group policy changes and the event logs, you're only going to see that a group policy was modified. You don't know what in the group policy was modified, but we can tell you what was modified because we're also watching Active Directory and taking state and time snapshots. Tied with that, from the top, you see user session activity. If you're trying to build an audit trail for a system that even we don't cover, but you'd like to have something there, you have the ability to have user session activity, basically kind of recording what the admin does on their machine, on their server. And then that creates for you a set of audit intelligence where you now have those reports that are giving you information about all the security events that took place, who performed them, what it was they did, and so on. And then that data is now able to be archived out so you can keep this indefinitely or for 7 years or whatever it is you need. Jeff, high level, did I miss anything? You're just trying to cover this at a very, very 10,000-foot view?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much gives you a good idea. I mean, like I said, it's a fantastic product, I think, for using for compliance, change control, just trying to figure out what the heck's going on, what happened to something, really does a lot for being able to track down changes within the directory, and again, everything rides on the directory nowadays, so it becomes pretty critical when things stop working. So
cool. So let's tell you just real quickly a little bit about Netwrix. We wanted to save that for the last part because I know so many companies start with, let me tell you about our company. And you're like, I don't even know if I even like your company. Why do I want to know about it? So we thought hopefully now you like us because we're giving you some free stuff. So just really quickly, our core competency is all about change configuration auditing of all your critical systems. That's what we focus on. We obviously have some tools and solutions that revolve around that core competency, but our focus is to build, basically, you can see in the second bullet here, simple, efficient, and affordable solutions where we're really trying to focus in on making sure that you have an ability to tell what is going on, what changes on your system are happening, and that you've got some kind of good event monitoring, event alerting, that sort of thing. We've been around for, I guess, about 7 years at this point. We are recognized in the Inc. 500 and Inc. 5000, 2 years running. In fact, I'll kind of show you that in a slide or two. We do have customers from just about every industry vertical. Every company that you attend a webinar for has a customer slide, right? So the real thing I want you to pull out of this isn't, look at that logo. It's really more so look at the different industry verticals that are represented here. And because we're working on the critical systems, and we aren't really reliant on, let's say, you really have to be worried about HIPAA or you can't use us. No, you're worried about Active Directory. You're worried about VMware, SharePoint, SQL, Exchange, file servers, Windows servers. You're worried about your technology, and we can help make sure that you know about all the security events that when someone's making a change to those systems. I did mention Inc. 500 and 5000 a moment ago. All the solutions that we showed you, in some cases even some of the ones that are now free, are award-winning. You can see Windows IT Pro, Redmond, Info Security Products Guide, the WindowsSecurity.com. The list kind of goes on and on. So we've got a lot of award-winning products here that people just like you have voted to say these are really good solutions. So we'd love for you to look at both the free and the paid, whatever fits your bill. And I guess the real thing we just want you to take away from this is that Active Directory is going to create these problems. We covered 4 of them, and I wanted to mention, of course, there are those other systems too. Auditor's going to, in our case, Netwrix Auditor is going to allow you to look at security events and configuration events that happen on multiple systems, not just security-related ones. And we want to help. So, freeware for the basic problems that you want to solve, and the paid solutions for the bigger stuff. And just in case you missed one, you have all of these here. Go ahead and do a quick screenshot. And someone had asked if inactive user tracking, the free tool, was a lowercase L or an uppercase I. That's an uppercase I. Those are all uppercase letters, and of course it's case sensitive. So someone asked that. I wanted to make sure that you got that as well. And then what we're going to do, we've got about 9 minutes, 10 minutes or so. We're going to answer a couple of questions. And then we're going to go ahead and announce the iPad mini giveaway. If you guys didn't know, we're giving away an iPad mini. And then we'll go ahead and continue answering the rest of the questions until we run out of time. That way we're both sensitive to the people that really want to get the questions answered. And then some of you are just like, cool, I got the free tool I wanted. I don't have any questions. I really want to go. So we want to make sure everybody has a chance here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to look at some of these questions here and try and take them from beginning to end. There was one that came in at 12:10, so I'm assuming it's from Kelly. Jeff, I'm assuming this is about Password Manager. That's about where we were in the presentation. It says, does it require a client install on laptops and desktops?
Password Manager does not require one. You can either use the web portal, which case obviously you can access through any web-enabled device, or you can push it out through the client. It's about 3.5 megabytes, so it's pretty small. You can push it out through Group Policy. It's relatively easy to do. You can push it out through System Center, so it's not a requirement. And again, if you've got a lot of non-Windows machines, or you want to be able to use other mechanisms, the web portal works quite well. So it's not a requirement. We do have people that use just the client. We have people who use just the web portal, and we have others that use both. So.
Cool. And then 2 more questions I'm going to combine together. One was, how is it licensed? And if it's per user, does it scan AD for the number of users? That's kind of one question. And the other one was, I think, right in the middle when you were talking about a couple different solutions, Password Manager, and it might have been also password expiration alerting. I think you might have mentioned like 50 users and 300 users, and so people got confused about how many users for Password Manager and then what was the 50 users in reference to.
Okay, so as far as the licensing, it's going to be a license for the Active Directory component of Auditor. It will go through your directory, and it will look at all the enabled AD user objects that you have. So if they're disabled, we don't care. If they are enabled, we do care. Password Manager is a little bit different. It's by enrolled user. So only the users that you want to enroll are actually required for licensing through the Password Manager component. The Active Directory component of Auditor does all of the enabled user objects within the directory, and it's licensed accordingly. You do have the ability to omit something. So let's say you have 10,000 accounts, and 9,000 of them are test accounts that you don't care about. You could omit those. It won't look at changes made to those accounts, but you wouldn't be charged for the licenses either. As far as the 50 or the 300, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
I thought the limit was 50, but it may be 300. So if I misspoke, then my apologies.
300 the 300 is what it's supposed to be. I think it's let's see, on the website it says 50, and then where's the 300 that I'm thinking of as well? Oh, I know what 300 users is. Inactive user tracking. That one's 300 users. So that's probably the confusion there. That might be, maybe I said 50, or maybe I said 300. But sorry about that, everyone. So Password Manager is definitely 50. It's inactive user tracking. That's 300. So Frank asked really quickly, and we don't have a lot of time, so you can do this really quick, maybe show him one report. But he wants to know if you can show an auditor trust and FSMO roles. Can you show that real quick?
I could, but I only have one domain controller, and so I have nowhere to move my FSMO roles to, unfortunately. So I can't show you that report. I could probably bring one up and move some stuff around and shoot you over one. So if you want to drop your email address in, I can certainly shoot that over to you.
We've got it. Frank, what we'll do is we'll reach out to you. We'll make sure that we get you like a screenshot or something so you can see the report, because we want you to be able to get that. All right. So real quickly, let's go ahead and announce the iPad Mini giveaway winner here, and then we'll keep answering some questions. We still have about 5 more minutes or so. So it looks like the winner is, and I mispronounced your name. I'm apologizing in advance. Nathan Leister. Might be Nathan Lester. I'm thinking it's Leister. I hope I said it right. Hope I didn't kill it, because I know my last name's Cavalencia and everybody murders it. I'm kind of used to it, but he's our winner. The rest of you, you're still winners because you get free tools, so you can't complain. But let's go ahead and let me just run up here through some more of these questions here. I got to sort through the does HR actually do a good job or not. Sorry, still more of that. There's the I versus L. Can inactive users free be installed on the same server where AD Change Reporter free is installed? So I guess the Netwrix Auditor for Active Directory, can we put both of those in the same box?
Yeah, all the software can be installed on the same server. The only caveat is you do not want to install the free version and the commercial version of the same product on the same box. So, for example, if you had the commercial version of the Active Directory Auditor and the free version of the Password Alerter, that's not a problem. If you had the free and the commercial version on there, that doesn't go well. So if you want to throw all the freeware on one box, all the commercial or a combination, as long as you don't have the same product installed, free and commercial, you're good to go.
Cool. Cindy asked a question I think you answered, but I'm going to ask it again anyways. For Privileged Account Manager, does it just show who, and then parentheses, as the person who used it is, or does it show where that admin account is used? We use it on backup exec, and she means a service account on backup exec and numerous other packages. I'm not sure if that's what it tracks. So is it tracking just who, or is it also tracking where it's used?
You can have it go out and search the network for all instances of where that is. Obviously, if you already have a good idea to begin with, then that'll make your life easier, but you can have it go out and search. That's probably your best bet. The only thing is there's no separate search utility from enrollment. So once you enroll that account, which you do have to be careful about, because once you enroll that account, it will literally just grab it, it will randomize the password, and it will go. So you do need to be a little bit careful if you do plan to use that, because we've had problems in the past where people have just add in accounts and not specified machines where it's installed, and obviously that did not go well. So do be careful about that, but it can go out. You can also use a tool like our Logon Reporter, where you can find all the logins from a specific account for what machines, and you can kind of double check that as well when you go to enroll if you choose. So
cool.
Hopefully that answers your question.
People are asking about do these tools need to be installed on their a DC, or can they install it on their workstation, or where can they put them?
So that's a great question. So theoretically, you can install it on a domain controller. We recommend you do not. Not because it won't work, but because if you need to restart the machine for some reason, why take down the domain controller? So we normally do recommend you use a member server. You could technically use a workstation as well. I've had people install it on XP, for example. Always recommend a server install. Obviously, you could use VM, a whole bunch of different stuff, but pretty much any Windows operating system is out there. It just needs to be robust enough so it doesn't need to be restarted, that kind of good stuff. But yeah, it does not need to be on a domain controller. And that's the case with all the products, by the way.
A couple people asked about the PowerPoint. We'll make sure we send it out to anyone who's asked for it. So if you really want a copy of it, just make sure you put a comment in the questions, because we're going to get those afterwards. We'll make sure we send you one. Someone asked, how are the paid versions licensed? Things like Active Directory is going to be licensed on a per-user basis. Some of the other products that Auditor audits, things like, let's say, file servers or SQL or SharePoint, will be licensed on a per-server basis. Exchange it is going to be done on a per mailbox basis, so it ties to kind of per user. So there's that, and we're going to running up. We're almost a minute. Abby, how much time do we actually have? Do we have to stop at the hour itself?
Yeah, we just have a couple minutes left.
Okay, all right. So we'll try and answer a couple more questions. If we don't get to your question, someone will get to your question. We'll make sure that a sales rep contacts you, or an SE or someone. So even if it's about a free tool, we'll make sure that you get an answer to all your questions. So we definitely want to make sure that you have that. So let's see. I'm trying to figure out what this question is. It's kind of long. What did he? Oh, he's just telling us about it. I thought there was a question. That's what there was no question I could find. All right, so let's see. A couple of copies of the PowerPoint. I know I missed a question here. Just saw this. Minimum number for the paid version of Password Manager. I guess in essence it would be 51, right? But I think it's probably 100. Do you know, Jeff, what the minimum number of licenses is for Password Manager?
For Password Manager, I believe, I thought it was 150, but I could be totally mistaken at this point, to be honest with you, for the paid.
Yeah, even though Jeff's a sales engineer, I'm actually going to kind of say he did this just by title. He's a geek like you and me, and I would always say I'm not in sales. I don't know. I know that it starts at some pricing, but we can get you an answer for that. Kurt asked about, it was right when we were covering Auditor at the end, can individual parts of this product be purchased, or do you have to buy the entire package? Auditor can be licensed for the systems you wish to audit. You don't have to buy everything. That graphic I was showing you was just to show you the breadth of the offering itself, but you do not have to get everything. So I think we're at the top of the hour. So I got a bunch of people saying you'd like a copy of the presentation. Happy to get it for you. Some of you provided emails. You don't have to because we get the registration stuff afterwards, and we'll make sure that we get in contact with you appropriately. So everyone, thank you for your attendance, Spiceheads. We hope you got something out of this. We know we try to make sure that it's really good. We love participating in the community, and it's actually really important to us because you guys are the lifeblood of not only just, keeping the lights on like I mentioned early on, but it's the problems that you guys are having that allow us an opportunity to actually create very cool solutions. So if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have much to do. It's kind of like, Tom Cruise or something accepting his award saying, if it wasn't for the fans, you're our fans in some way. So we really appreciate you guys being here. Jeff, thank you for making this much easier for me today. Thank you for being on the call. I really appreciate your stories and your knowledge. It helps. And I think that's it, everyone. Thank you for attendance. We'll catch you on the next Netwrix webinar. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Great presentation, and thanks again to everybody for attending. Just a reminder, you will get an email in a week with a link to the recording, so be on the lookout for that. Everyone have a great rest of the afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars.